A small skirmish on GC, but mainly a big fight for the breakaway in this stage. Vuelta, stage 15 from Navalmoral de la Mata to El Barraco. It's a high mountain stage, but the end of the stage doesn't make it that appetizing to GC contenders. Yes, you've got 3 long climbs in the middle of the stage, but they're steady gradient, and the final climb's only 8Ks at 4%, where even if you get a gap, there's a false flat downhill afterwards. So none of the GC teams were really interested in setting anything up for their main contenders. We did have a big fight for the break. You see with the flat run into the first climb, Mauri van Sevenot bringing a teammate for the flat, Josef Cherny on the Koenig Quickstep. And we also had Sepp Kuss in this move for Jumbo-Visma, which is fantastic from them. They've kept him close on GC, and that creates a difficult decision for the other GC teams combined. We talked about this at length about whether Movistar should chase or not on the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast. They ended up chasing Sepp Kuss down, whereas I think they could have allowed a Hindley-Kelderman Giro 2020 situation to bubble away and develop. Break got caught eventually, despite Cherny's best efforts. Then there were attacks once again with DSM getting in the move behind before Sivakov and Magnus Cort again got into the breakaway. Sivakov's actually coming into some nice form, and he's quite strong on the flat and medium mountain. And we're still not at the base of the first long climb of the day, so we have rouleurs trying to get into the breakaway. Seb Van Mark, you can see bridging there. By the time we do get onto the climbers come to the fore. In Maxim van Gils, Rafał Majka, and Fabio Aru for Quebec Assos, those 3 go clear. No one else would ever see Rafał Majka again for this stage. They drop Van Gils. They got a 38-second gap in 3Ks. They build out another minute ahead of a group containing Kruijswijk, Bouchard, Storer, Chris Hamilton, but there weren't multiple teams with multiple teammates there. UAE also had a rider blocking for Rafał Majka, so that gap went out to 2 minutes and 5 seconds before the second long climb of the day. And the team that really played the first half of this stage in a way that I have no idea why they did it was Bahrain victorious. First, they tried desperately to get Damiano Caruso in the second break after he'd missed a split in the first break attempt. Then they got Wout Poels in this break, which had no chance of catching Majka. He burnt himself, so 2 climbing domestiques gone for no reason. Landers out the back. All this on a stage where Haig might need support later when there's attacks, perhaps on the final climb. So Caruso and Poels' first half of this stage was pretty much a futile waste of energy in my view. Eventually, Rafał Majka on the middle climb of the day with 87 Ks to go drops Fabio Aru, who's retiring at the end of this year, and he will never see Rafał Majka again, and no one will in this stage. And this is pretty much a carbon copy of Damiano Caruso's stage win the other day in the Vuelta a España, where he attacked with 70 Ks to go plus, getting away from a group with Romain Bardet. And you can see the group behind dysfunctional, riders attacking on, really pulling, and a draft is important on these are 5% climbs. Intermarché locking it down behind, keeping the gap at about 6 minutes. They did a really good job today, actually, Intermarché controlling for old Christian Eiking, making it through to the second rest day with the leader's jersey. And unfortunately, this parcours and both weekend stages really just didn't seem to offer enough for the GC teams like Bahrain, Movistar, or Ineos to try something against Jumbo-Visma, who even had the luxury of sending Kruijswijk in the break, who dangled at about 1 minute and 33 behind Rafał Majka for an hour and a half. And by the time they got onto the descent, before the final 8K 4% climb with Majka having a 90% lead, we knew the Arctic Race of Norway 2014 GC winner Stefan Kruijswijk would not be winning this stage. But it was good for his morale, I guess, to get a chance to go for the stage. He said that in a tweet, I think, afterwards. Intermarché still controlling with 11 Ks to go. They even brought the gap down nicely to Rafał Majka, who also, just like Romain Bardet yesterday, very similar careers, similar ages. They decided, or maybe their teams wanted to, they opted to go for GC, probably in their primes after they'd been good stage hunters. I mean, Bardet did get multiple podiums at the Tour de France. Majka didn't really get that payoff, but Bardet hadn't won a World Tour stage for 4 years. Majka hadn't won any race in about 4 years, I think, until he last won a Vuelta stage. And after doing a sterling job, I thought, in the Tour de France for Tadej Pogačar, takes the stage win at the Vuelta a España. He was pretty emotional afterwards. He's had a bit of a rough year, apparently. And in the GC group, there was GC action, even though we thought everyone would ride to the finish. Adam Yates has a dig on this final climb, and it's Enric Mas closing him, not Lopez, which is quite a defensive maneuver, and that obviously triggers Roglic to close Enric Mas. It seems it would have been better for Lopez to close Adam Yates or to attack himself, because Roglic is always going to close Enric Mas, who's closer to him on GC. Jumbo-Visma probably won't close, well, they don't close Yates the second time because he's so far behind GC. And then when you factor in the probable gains from the TT, he's like 4 minutes plus back on Roglic. It's Bahrain Victorious who got caught out here, with Yates perhaps a threat to Haig if Haig wants to go for the podium or is fourth. They've burnt Caruso and poles. Gino Mader's not pulling. Padun and Landa aren't there. Roglic has slipped back further in the group, marking Enric Mas. It's Sepp Kuss that's third wheel. So when Adam Yates digs a second time, Lopez marks, but then lets him go because he's like, well, why am I marking Yates? He's quite far behind me on GC. Jumbo-Visma with Kuss as well. They're like, oh, he can only gain so much time on a false flat descent with a short attack when everyone's fresh, and Kuss just rides it in. And this is pretty similar to Miguel Angel Lopez attack the other day or yesterday when he took 4 seconds on Roglic, where Yates actually lost 16 seconds to Lopez and 12 to Roglic. He takes back 15 seconds today, meaning he's about status quo from where he was before the weekend started. But I am curious to think, if Movistar had let Kuss take time, would Jumbo-Visma continue to let him pull on the front like this, or would they still say, no, Roglic is the man, Ciccone sprinting to take no time? But not the most memorable stage of my life. Rafał Majka taking the win, 90 seconds ahead of Kruijswijk, and Hamilton was in no man's land, with the GC group finishing about 3 minutes after Rafał Majka. Odd Christian Eiking keeps the red jersey, 54 seconds ahead of Gobert Matériaux, and the gaps and placings all the way from Roglic to Bernal are pretty much unchanged from the first rest day, except Bernal and Yates bleeding a little bit more time. But I hope you enjoyed the recap. We have an interview with a special guest on the Lanterne Rouge rest day recap cycling podcast tomorrow. Go and check that out. It's a different channel on YouTube. It's on all major podcast players. It's in the link in the description below. But otherwise, I'll see you on Tuesday with the Stage 16 recap. Ciao.